A resolution of the City Council of the City of Miami Springs, Florida, calling a special election on August 18th, 2026, for the purpose of submitting to the electorate of the City of Miami Springs, Florida, a charter amendment providing requisite ballot language, providing for balloting and election procedures, providing for notice of election, providing for copies, providing for charter amendment election procedures and related details, providing for inclusion in the charter, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Okay. So, somebody going to present? I mean, we all reviewed the ballot language. Is there going to be a? Would you like to say a few words?
The ballot language is presented. You have a resolution to vote on to set the election in August, as you've been discussing for the last few months. The title of the question is simply revitalizing the Northwest 36th Street District. And then you have a question that is fairly consistent with what you've been discussing throughout, now modified with the language, as a result of the discussion at the last council meeting. So I'll just go straight to that part of the question, which is, I'll just read it in. So currently the question is, the charter provides that buildings that include more than 2 residential dwelling units shall not exceed 3 stories and a maximum of 40 feet in height. To revitalize and attract investments in the Northwest 36th Street District, it is proposed to exempt buildings with residential units located east of East Drive in the district from the charter's restriction, subject to current zoning height limitations. Shall the above described amendment be adopted? And so that subject to language is really the focus of your last council discussion, and so that's been added. At the end of the resolution, you'll see that there's an exhibit which includes the actual language that would go into your charter. So as I've shared in the past, you've got the question that you're voting on that's being presented to the voters, and then separately, as part and parcel of that, you have the actual text that goes into the charter. There's a map that has been included to show the properties that would be subject to this provision. So it's those properties that are east of East Drive in the district, and those are set forth as figure 1 in the text. And I'm happy to take, and the other addition that we added is that, if I can zoom in, the text in the charter would be that your existing language would remain about the any building that includes more than 2 residential dwelling units shall not exceed 3 stories and a maximum of 40 feet in height. And then we have the exemption language, which is, the foregoing restriction shall not apply to buildings with residential units located east of East Drive within the Northwest 36th Street District, subject to the height limitations contained in the city's Code of Ordinances for the Northwest 36th Street District as of August 18th, 2026. This exception shall only apply to properties located east of East Drive in the Northwest 36th Street District as the district exists as of August 18th, 2026, as illustrated in the map shown in Figure 1 below. And Figure 1 is that map that I was just referring to. And so the August date is tied directly to the election that you are calling for that same date.
Thank
I
you.
can take any questions, Mayor.
Okay. Yeah. And so I just want to reiterate that I think that hit the nail on the head in terms of what we had lengthy discussions last meeting. And the point that we wanted to convey is that at least I've been hearing from residents, and people want assurances that by providing this exemption to the 3-story residential limit that is citywide, that they would provide an exemption to an area that cannot change in the future, right? People want to know that what they're voting on is what they're voting on, that won't change. So we asked that there be specific language when we amend the charter, when this goes to, so if residents vote yes, they are voting to amendment, but they will know that the area that we're specifying in Northwest 36th Street, the boundaries will not change. They will be the same boundaries as they are written as of when they go to vote, and that'll be locked in. And then also the underlying height restrictions, because we discussed that in that area right now, currently all buildings can be roughly up to 4 stories if you're within 150 feet of residential, and roughly 12 stories beyond that 150-foot kind of buffer zone where that's within 150 feet of residential. And we wanted to make sure, because the first question people ask is, well, if you're asking for this exemption, what's the height limits going to be? And the answer is what it is for every other building right now. We're just not going to, in that area, arbitrarily limit residential, because it is a strong market and it's not fair that other buildings can go up to 4 and 12 stories respectively. So we wanted specificity so that people know that when they go to vote, it will be that district as drawn on that day, and those height restrictions in that district will be as the underlining zoning is in that district currently for all other buildings as of that day. And that'll get kind of locked in, and people will know there's no bait and switch. They are voting for what they are voting for, and then it just puts, it puts the onus on us to make sure that we communicate why we're doing that. But I think that based on our discussions, lengthy discussions for over a year now, but definitely with regard to the ballot language, we wanted to make sure that people knew exactly what they were voting for and that it wouldn't change in subsequent years. And if a future council wants to change it, they can take it back up to the voters. But this allows us to kind of restore the residential height restrictions so that it's even with everything that's underlying, and will allow us to tap into that really strong market in that area that's a little bit more urban and certainly needs revitalization. So I commend you, our city attorney, for writing that up, because I think that you hit it exactly as we asked for it. I'll open it up to my colleagues for discussion. Take it away, gentlemen. What do you got?
Happy with it. I think it's clear, so everybody knows what they're getting. So I'm on board.
All right.
The chair. Ultimately, that's been our goal. That's why it's taken a little while, because we want to make sure that the message is clear. There is no pulling of the rug here at the last minute. We're basically telling you that this is no different than what's there now. That's the question I always got from everybody. It's like, well, how much more is it going to be? It's like, no different than what's there now. And they're like, oh, okay. So, ultimately, this has been the goal, and I think we got the question clearer to me today. It's been a while, but we got it, so I'm happy with it.
Okay.
Through the chair. So when residents have asked me about this ballot, I explained to them, there's a word limit to what the ballot can contain. And I try to give them context. So I think if we, moving forward, provide context to the residents, and I think the article powers pretty much says, should that pass, this is what we're looking at, right? This is what I think it's very clear. We just get the messaging out to the community, and with the map, and I think they'll understand exactly what they're voting on. So thank you for that, Heidi, to you and your team.
All right. And then what?
Mr. Chair?
Sure, go ahead, Councilman or Vice Mayor.
And I have to agree with Councilman Perez Crespo. The messaging is important, and I think one of the most important top things that is important to the residents is what it does to public safety in the area. And when we convey the message to the residents, I think it's important. And I understand why we can't put it in the ballot. So it's not what I'm saying, but I believe it's important that we convey that message, how this is going to make 36th Street a lot safer.
Yeah, that certainly is the goal, to try to revitalize that area that is kind of missing, one leg in the stool, which is that really strong market of residential in that particular district. So, okay, what is our deadline to get this in? I think it's in a week or two, right? May 22nd is our deadline.
Yeah.
Okay, but we can. I think we're ready to approve this language as it is, right?
It sounds that way.
It sure does. All right. So,
And you have the resolution, it's 12A, it's the boilerplate that we always need to do when we're calling for a special election. And then, as I shared, it has the actual text, it has the notice that will go out per state law in the newspapers. And it also has the actual text that goes into the charter. So when August 18th comes and goes, if this passes, then the actual text that will appear in the charter from then on is attached. So if there's any questions, that's really where people can look.
Right. Okay. And the election that we're asking for a special election on August 18th? Okay. Right. And that's why that's the date that's in the language, in the charter amendment language. So,
Mayor, and that's also the just general countywide primary election. So there's judges that are up for election
Sure.
that day. There's other offices. There might be
Yep.
some statewide primaries. I
Yep.
think the governor's primary is on that. So it is a big turnout day.
yep.
And you do have approval from the supervisor of elections to conduct the election that day, which is a prerequisite to calling for the special election. So May 22nd is your final date. If you approve this tonight, I am certain that our city clerk will be sending the resolution off to the supervisor of elections tomorrow morning, and they will begin the process on that end of translating the question, confirming that it meets all of the state statutory requirements for word and word counts, et cetera. So that process will get underway.
Okay. And then,
Through
Go
the
ahead.
chair.
well,
We piggybacked off the primaries, so we saved a lot of money just to get this on the ballot versus a standalone special election, so.
yeah. And I was going to ask because that's a primary election, how many voting locations
Right, I
will
was
be
going
open
to
in the city?
report that in my city clerk
And is there
report.
early voting? and-
So it's slightly different from the general election that we experience for council. All precincts will be open since it is a countywide election, so it's going to be all four precincts. The golf course, the community center, and two schools, Springview and Miami Springs. So all precincts will be open. It does go through a series of translations, so you're going to see the question in English, Spanish, and in Creole, which is required by state statute for county elections. So yeah, polls will be open. There'll be early voting and in certain areas, not necessarily here in Springs. I think our closest early voting site will be the library in Hialeah or the elections office, which is on 87th and 25th Street. Which is
The
probably-
chair, and the government center in downtown, sorry. You could early vote there as well, in downtown
okay.
Miami, yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's going to be several sites that will be open for early voting. And yeah, that's
Okay. Councilman, you wanted to chime in?
Heidi, Erica asked a question about the languages, the Spanish and Creole. My question to you is, does those translations go through the attorneys?
Usually, we do look at them, and the clerk looks at it, we look at it. We trust that they are being done. They're done by professional translators that the county hires. Either they're in-house or they're hired. When it's in Spanish, I can look and make sure that it meets the intent. I do not speak Creole, but to the extent that we need to run it by somebody who does, I'm sure we can.
Thank you.
I also wanted to add, Erica, I think during early voting, residents can vote anywhere at any early voting site countywide. So if you work down in Homestead and you want to vote before or after work or during a lunch break, you can do that. And certainly as through absentee ballots. So make sure that your mail-in ballot request is in ahead of time.
And on election day, it's your actual precinct, which you would have to vote at. So
Through the chair, I'd like to remind those who do mail-in ballots or absentee ballots, make sure you're still registered. I think the state is purging voter ID rolls. So
every 2 years.
It's
Yeah,
every
so-
every two general elections.
Yeah,
So
so-
if you had it for the last one, but check.
Yep.
Right.
Check just
And
to make sure.
signatures also, they need to verify signatures. If they don't match, they won't count the vote. So
Okay. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Thank you for staff for all the hard work on this. Okay, having no further discussion, how about a motion to approve 12A?
I'll make the motion.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second that motion.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Call the vote, please, Erica.
Vice Mayor Lamas,
Yes?
Councilman Santeen,
Yes.
Councilman Dion,
Yes.
Councilman Perez Crespo,
Yes.
Mayor Fahet.
Yes.
The motion